Hi, this is Ed, and today we're going to talk about the ZXL, where we are with it in production, and some of the value. We're actually going to look at the price on this machine versus some other mowers in the market about halfway through this video. But let me first introduce what we're talking about here. So I have a ZXL right here, and right over there I have a ZXT. The ZXT is a mower we came out with a little more than a year ago, which is a really big, powerful machine, 26-inch tires, 40 horsepower. This machine here is very similar in its performance, but it's a much lighter machine, and it's also at a lower price. So the ZXL, we went into production with this just recently, and we're beginning to crank them out. So some of the top line features on both the machines are they're very heavy duty. It's all about low operating costs. The front of the machine to about here is identical on both mowers. We have flat free tires, lower no maintenance bearings down here, massive housings here so the casters can't get broken off, all heavy duty features along there. This machine here, the seat sits a little bit lower than on the ZXT. The ZXT actually has a whole platform that the suspension seat rides on and the controls ride up and down with it. And so that's better for bumpy ground, high speed, that kind of stuff. Adds a little more weight to the machine. This machine is lighter with standard suspension seat on the top here. Now when we get to the back of the machine, the styling is very similar, but the frame is slightly different. The difference there has a lot to do with this machine having 4,400 transmissions in it, hydrogear integrated transmissions in it, versus the ZXT, which has a pump and motor system, 18 cubic inch wheel motors with a planetary gear reduction system, very, very heavy duty. And that hydro system has an 8-quart capacity, which allows the maintenance interval there to be 1,000 hours, whereas this has a standard hydrogear oil change interval. This machine also has 24 by 12 inch rear tires, whereas the other machine on the 61 and 72 inch decks has 26 by 14 tires. And all of our machines are very low maintenance, but to us we call this standard maintenance. So there's no grease fittings on this machine. In a lot of cases, we will have synthetic shafting with, or stainless steel shafting with synthetic bushing, or we'll use sealed ball bearings and some of the pivots and those types of things. So there's no grease fittings on this machine, but the engine oil interval is standard here, and the transmission oil change interval is standard. Now on the ZXT, the engine has the oil guard system, which is a 500-hour oil change. It has an engine pre-cleaner that extends the air filter maintenance interval, and the hydro system, like I said, is 1,000 hours. And so that's a maintenance difference between the two machines. Both machines have ROPs that fold to the bumper. In terms of engines, so the ZXT has a 40 horsepower engine, Vanguard engine, with what we call EFI ETC. So it's an EFI engine, fuel injected engine, very efficient, and the ET stands for electronic throttle control. And so the throttle is driven by a servo motor, very much like most vehicles today. They don't run a cable mechanically up to the throttle anymore. And that engine is very responsive. It responds to load really quickly, and it also maintains engine speed a lot more aggressively. So if you go into high load conditions, or you engage the clutch, you go up a hill, that engine's going to respond really, really quickly. And at that top speed range, that's where they get that extra horsepower, the 40 horsepower from it. Now this machine in a 61-inch deck comes with a 37 horsepower engine. The 37 horsepower on this machine here is the identical block as the 40 horsepower engine. It just has a mechanical governor on it. That means that when the engine is in deep grass or something like this, and you're really pushing it hard, they're going to have fairly similar peak torque levels, and you're going to get about as much work done with this machine in a setting like that. But when you're off the governor, this machine isn't going to respond quite as edgy as the ETC system on the ZXT. So again, you get very similar performance between the two machines, and this one costs a little bit less, which is part of the equation there. Now in terms of engine configurations, we also offer this machine on the 52-inch deck with a 28 horsepower engine, and we are also just now adding the 28 horsepower engine to the 61-inch deck. The 28 horsepower engine is Vanguard's 810cc EFI engine. It's a very tried and true engine. I would say that if you plan to bag with a 61, you're going to want to get the 37 horsepower, just because the weight of the flywheel and that bigger displacement engine is going to really drive that bagger a lot stronger than the 28 horsepower engine will, so keep that in mind. Now, I think it's important to say here that it's not that the ZXT is a bigger machine, but it's not necessarily better for every job. The ZXT, it's powerful, it's fast, it's smooth riding, it's heavier, and if you're running back-to-back residential properties, this machine will actually probably give you greater performance because it's more nimble. It's lighter, you'll be able to duck and weave around things a little bit better. Now, if you're mowing some bigger acreage, the ZXT is going to give you lower operating costs, more comfort, higher ground speeds, and a little bit more power at that engine peak speed. So it's really not about better or worse, it's about which machine is right for the job. Now, both the ZXT and the ZXL come with something we call bumper-to-bumper coverage. And that bumper-to-bumper coverage is more than a warranty. You have your standard 2-year unlimited hour warranty, commercial warranty on the machine, and then you have typically the engine, which is warranted by the engine manufacturer, typically for 3 years, and those warranties are against manufacturing defects. Now, what we do with bumper-to-bumper coverage is we cover anything that spontaneously breaks. We want to put a commitment to what we say by backing it up with this bumper-to-bumper coverage. So if anything spontaneously breaks, we'll cover that. Now, if the mower falls off a trailer or you hit something with it, direct impact, those types of things we would call damage, and they wouldn't be included. But for the first year, that bumper-to-bumper coverage would cover spontaneous failures of any sort. Now, we're going to step aside here. We're going to look at a chart, and we're going to compare this machine against a number of other mowers in the market. So first, let me say that I often don't talk about our competitors' mowers, and I don't talk about other people's machines. That's not my style. The machines that I have listed up here, I picked because I respect these machines. I respect competing with these folks in the market. My point really here is to talk about Wright and the value that we can bring you, more so than other folks' machines. So first off, we have the ZXL here and some of the top level features. 24 by 12 tires, the 37 horsepower EFI engine, around 15 gallons of gas, around 12 miles an hour ground speed, standard maintenance, suspension seat, 1,300 pounds, okay? If we go down from here, we have the Tiger Cat, which has pump and motor transmissions. It's around $1,500 less with a carbureted engine, a slightly smaller tire. And then if you go down from there, we have what we call our ZTO, which is around $4,600 less. This has ZT 3400 transmissions in it, 24-inch tires, a medium-sized block carbureted engine, and so that's from the ZXL down. Now, if you go up from the ZXL here, you have the Deere Z950R. It's around $500 more, somewhere around there. Similar tire. The engine here is less displacement, and it's carbureted instead of EFI. So you get less engine for more money. You get much less fuel capacity, around the same ground speed. Maintenance-wise, suspension, seat, weight, those are fairly similar down here. Now, if you go up here, you have the Hustler Super Z, which is around $500 more as well. Similar tire, FX 1000 EFI versus the 37 horsepower EFI engine. They're going to both be pretty similar in terms of torque output and fuel efficiency. You have more fuel capacity here with Wright. You have less ground speed here. They run a little bit faster machine. I would argue, though, a little bit when you get past 12.5 to 13 miles an hour, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. And actually, it reduces the life on your hydros a bit because you're running higher pressures typically. And the other thing is it makes the machine a little bit edgy when you are, kind of in close areas where you need very precise control of the machine. These high ground speeds can make it edgy like that. Maintenance is standard, suspension seat standard. It's a bit heavier for the same level of performance, which is, you always want a lighter machine. It's easier on your trailers, it's easier on the turf, it's going to be more maneuverable. Now, if we were to say, let's compare it to the Skag Cheetah, so let's say around $700 less, similar tires, same engine, we have a little bit more fuel capacity, a good bit more fuel capacity. This machine has a 2-speed option on the transmission. I somewhat prefer the single-speed option here just because there's less moving parts. But that can be nice if you're looking for temporary transport speed kind of a thing. Standard maintenance. This machine here comes with the seat suspension that rides up and down from the frame, and it includes the platform. On the ZXT, we have a long travel suspension system that's a bit different in that our platform doesn't travel with the seat, but our controls do. So the controls float with the seat, so you have no relative movement between your body and the hand controls. That's not on the Cheetah. If weight-wise, we're a little bit lighter, pretty close to weight compared to the Cheetah. Now, if we look at the Laser X series, and we could have looked at the Laser S series, and you would have seen that we were very competitive on price as well. But the Laser X series, I think, is the closer comparison to the ZXL, but not quite big enough to put it in the ZXT category here. But you're looking at about $4,000 more for a machine with same tires, same engine. This does have an oil guard system, which is, let's say, about a $500 value. Less fuel capacity, lower ground speed, standard maintenance, standard suspension seat. And so you can see here that the ZXL is giving you really, really good value versus Laser X series. Now, if we look at the Turf Tiger, which is really in a whole nother league of size, it's a big mower. I'm going to compare it to the ZXT. So the ZXT is about $1,500 more than the ZXL. Turf Tiger is about $2,400 more, somewhere around there. They both have 26-inch tires. The ZXT has a tire that's 2 inches wider, which really helps reduce ground pressure for such a large machine. This is comparing a 40-horse EFI to 40-horse EFI with the oil guard, the 500-hour maintenance system on the Wright ZXT. We've got more fuel capacity, a little more ground speed, a much longer maintenance interval for everything. We have the long travel suspension system on the ZXT as well, and fairly comparable weight. So that's just a quick rundown. Again, I'm not being critical of anybody else's machine. There's some really good machines out there. Some of you all own some of these machines. What I want to show here is that with both the Wright ZXT and the ZXL, you get really good value for your money. Now, let me also talk about availability. I've been saying these kinds of things for a while, and I just want to remind you that at this point in the winter, this is January of 2022, at this point in the winter, a lot of mower inventory out there is spoken for, even some of what's in the production schedule is spoken for. So as you look at spring, be sure that you get your name on the list with your dealers of what you want. If you wait until it becomes available in stock on their showroom floor, depending on the model, that might not happen until the end of spring. So shop early, whatever it is that you're looking for, and I hope you have a good rest of the winter.